Tiny home, tiny budget. In this video, I'm going to explain to you how I am able to save an absolute fortune building this tiny house. Because there's some things that you can really mess up on if you're not careful and end up spending 10 times more money than, say, me, who does some things in a little bit of a different way to most people. And also, if you're wondering what I'm up to in terms of actual work on the tiny house, I am adding the remaining OSB boards to the walls. Now, if you don't know what OSB is, it's oriented strand board, so it's just loads of little bits of wood that are then compressed together. And it's actually surprisingly strong. Like, this gives the structure quite a lot of strength. Hold on a second, isn't this actually kind of like forged carbon, where the carbon weave is all chopped up and then compressed together? And on that topic of carbon fiber, I've managed to track down where Pagani and Lamborghini get their carbon fiber weave from, because I've got this vision in my head that the floors could be made out of some sort of high twill, I think it's called. I don't know anything really about carbon fiber, but what I do know is full exposed carbon, Pagani wires and whatnot. The carbon fiber weave on it is extremely unique and it just looks insane. Now, when it comes to the fixtures and fittings, to get the cheapest thing possible costs X amount of money. To get something that is unbelievably good, it usually will cost 50% more than the cheapest option. So in my mind, I always think, well, let's just spend a little bit more on certain things to get exactly what I want, because even for something that I don't want, I'm still going to have to spend quite a lot of money. So when I was adding up the total cost for the tiles and the wood flooring, I thought, why don't I think outside of the box? Why is it nobody uses carbon fiber really in houses? Well, it's really expensive, but is it if you do it all yourself? Now, some of you are probably thinking, yeah, Chris, that really does sound like it's going to cost a lot because you need to have these machines, these vacuums, all of that stuff. But you can actually lay carbon fiber without using a vacuum. My thought behind this is, well, if I go on Facebook Marketplace, some person is giving away some old glass shower screen. Well, I can clean the glass and then lay the carbon fiber on the glass and essentially be creating 2 meter by 1 meter carbon fiber tiles, and then just go Halfords and buy some clear coat. And before I know it, I've got gloss carbon floors. And the square meter cost for very high-end porcelain is very expensive. So if I just converted that into carbon fiber, I might be onto a winner. Oh, also, before I forget, I was driving down the road the other day and I saw a house that was having some work done on it, and there was a skip on the road. And within that skip, there was this workbench. So I parked my car, went and spoke to the person who was running the site, and I was like, do you mind if I have this? And he was like, yeah, sure, mate, I don't care. It frees up some space in the skip. Take it away. And then the next day, one of my friends texted me and was like, I just drove past a skip and they're getting rid of an entire bathroom. Do you want me to go and ask if you can have any bits of it? And a lot of it was quite damaged, except for this sink. Now, I don't actually want this sink because I don't think it's going to fit with the look that I'm going for in the bathroom. But what I do need is the functionality of this sink. For example, it's quite a decent shape. So what I could do is overlay the sink with carbon fiber. And then after various layers of resin, sanding, clear coat, I reckon I could make this into a full carbon sink. And so I'm basically using the sink as a form for the carbon fiber sink that I want to create. So I think that's actually a really good example of how you can achieve a really high-end, luxurious look without actually spending that much money. Whereas if you paid somebody else to create that for you, well, it would cost an absolute fortune. And what is the reason for that? Well, it's time. This is one of the most important elements into how I'm able to build so cheaply, and that is because I do everything myself. In London, the average day rate for, let's just say, any trade is anything from 125 quid a day to 250 quid a day. And unfortunately, that can be for a good job or a bad job. Well, let's just say that you're renovating your flat or you're building this tiny house and it is going to take you 100 days to build it. So let's call your day rate of being a DIY self-build person a price tag of 200 quid per day. It takes you 100 days to do your project. That is £20,000. Now that's some serious money, considering that the material cost for this entire tiny house is probably going to be around that amount. Just from doing all of the work myself, that is basically making the house for free, because that labor cost that you would have been paying is now paying for the materials. It's a weird way of thinking about things, because obviously you are still having to spend that 20 grand, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. You can just transfer that potential saving. And that's what I've always done, and it makes me so happy because it makes all of the work worth it. When you're waking up at 6 in the morning, it's freezing cold on a Saturday, and you're like, I've got to do X, Y, and Z work. Just think, oh, well, if I don't do this, I'm going to have to pay somebody else to do it for me, and I haven't got that money. And if you're starting to think, oh, but I can't do these trades, well, once you did not know how to do your job, just like how a tiler once did not know how to tile a bathroom, how a plasterer did not know how to plaster walls. It's all just experience, but the problem is most people, they don't like being bad at things. They don't like failing. Nobody really does, but when you fail so often, and as much as I have and still do, it's basically a superpower, because nothing really phases you. Obviously in the moment it annoys you, but you just get on and fix whatever you messed up. Now, I've done an entire video on how to save an absolute fortune on materials by haggling, calling up, getting trade accounts. And this is quite an important thing to remember, that the price you see on a website, well, that is for the client to see. There's a completely different world when you look behind the scenes and you realize that when you have a trade account, you are getting things for a significant discount. But then what I do is the one step further, where you're actually calling up and you're saying, hi mate, what is the best price you can do on XYZ? And always remember, the worst thing someone can say is no. They'll just go, mate, that's the best price I can do, unfortunately. And at that point you go, yeah, fair. Okay, like that's it. You know what I was saying earlier about how people don't like to fail? People are terrified of rejection. But in this example, nothing bad can happen, because if they say no, you're still going to have to buy the product for exactly the same price. You might as well use your one opportunity to get something for a slightly cheaper price. And this is something that's a very difficult thing to grasp. If you call up to get marble worktops and it say is a list price of £8,000, and you start chatting to the person, you haggle a little bit, and you end up getting a price reduction, so it's now £7,000. You've saved £1,000 by just calling up and haggling. Well, that doesn't actually mean you got it for the best prices possible, because somebody else could call up, and because of who they are, their mannerisms, how they talk, their personality, they might actually get it for an even cheaper price, because the person just gets along with that person way better. Example time. I was in Harrods, and there were these two 30-year-olds in front of me in the line in North Face. And when I tell you these were the worst rich London people that I've ever heard, well, there's a lot more descriptive words I'd love to use. They were so rude to the guy working at the till. So once the rah-rah, I haven't worked in 14 generation type people left North Face, I went up to the till and said, I think you need to get paid a lot more to have to deal with see you next Tuesdays like that. And the person at the till started laughing, because in that moment, I have just said what he's been thinking for the last 2 years that he's been working there and having to deal with these muppets. Now, because I've asked for money off in pretty much everywhere, I know that most ski shops will give you 10 to 20% off just if you ask. Sometimes if there's a particularly difficult person behind the till, they'll just tell you to get lost. But in this case, he was like, oh, I can only give 10% off. But because he works there, he gets 20% off. So he just put it through as his employee code. And all of that was created because of who I am. Your personality, being a nice person, always pays off. It really does. And the quickest way to make money is to save money. Spend it where you really have to. For example, if I didn't haggle on all of the timber insulation, all of that would cost around the £7,000-8,000. But because I always call up and shop around for the best price, everything you see with the timber and the insulation, the warm deck roof, the OSB, the 4x2, the frame, all of that costs £3,800. I've heard about people spending £2.5 grand for the exact skylights that I've got, but the difference is my ones cost 400 quid because I buy them off of eBay. Now, those of you who have watched this channel for a long time must think, God, you sound like a broken record. You keep saying that. But it's almost every day that I'll get a message of people being like, how do you manage to get skylights so cheap? And I'm always explaining to people that most products come from exactly the same factory. And eBay is where you sell second-hand things, but I'd say that a majority of it is actual eBay stores, and a lot of them have a multi-buy discount. So if you're buying, say, 3 or more, you might get a 10% discount. Now, following on from those same lines, there is another way you can save a fortune, and that is Facebook Marketplace. There is an entire world of builders who, when they get to an end of a project and they've got 4 sheets of insulation left because they accidentally ordered too much, they will just chuck that on Facebook Marketplace and either put it for free or at a significant discount. Now, this goes for other things, like, for example, a friend of mine just got a load of brand new oak frame windows from Facebook Marketplace, and the reason for it is the person who had ordered it gave the wrong measurement, so when they turned up to site, none of them fit. Now, they can't return it because it was bespoke made, so therefore what do? They chuck it on eBay, Pre-Loved, Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace, and there are incredible deals you can get. Another website that I've mentioned in previous videos is Appliances Direct. That is where I pretty much buy all of my appliances from because they got really good prices, but it's not just that, they also have a refurbished part. And within that section, they have different gradings for a refurbished appliance. Now, these refurbished appliances have different gradings for how damaged they are. Grade A1 is good condition, may have hard to spot minor imperfections, like you will not notice the damage on almost any of it. And actually, in some cases, the customer goes, oh, I've ordered the wrong thing, or actually, I don't like this. They put it back in the box, return it, and that is classed as a slight imperfection because technically it is not brand new anymore. An example of this is a cooking hob that I was looking at recently, which was grade A1, basically brand new, and instead of it being 228 quid, you can buy it refurbished for 189 quid. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's only a 30 quid saving, that's not that much. And that is true. However, beggars can't be choosers. My best piece of advice for you is to save a lot of money on your project is think about what you are actually creating, because when you make a floor plan, designing what you want your kitchen to look like, all of these things, that will have a massive impact on the cost of the project. As an example, me in the London project having 5 bathrooms, that means I needed to buy 5 toilets, 5 sinks. That adds up to quite a lot of money, and if you can streamline your design for exactly what you want in your tiny house, home, flat, whatever project you've got going on, it might have an impact on the valuation of your project. But if you're not interested in that kind of thing, it's definitely a way to save a lot of money. For example, if you look at my tiny house, I really wanted to put 5 skylights on it, but then I thought, do I actually need that many? Okay, well, let's redesign the roof, and now I've got away with only buying 3, so what are the knock-on effects of that? Well, it's not only the reduction in purchase price, because I'm not having to buy 2 more skylights at a price of 400 quid each, creating a saving of £800, it's not just that. Because if I had bought those skylights, then I'd have to do all of the knock-on effects work from those skylights, meaning I would have to buy 8 corner patches, more lap sealant, more uncured rubber, and that all probably totals a good 300 quid. So that 800 quid savings in skylights is actually 1100 quid. Another example would be, I really wanted to have a big fridge. Now, let's just say they're £1,000. I started thinking about it, and I was like, does that actually give me any happiness, the fact that I've got a nice fridge? Or would I rather buy a 300 quid fridge, and that 700 quid in savings I can then pass on to another part of the house, and maybe that pays for the TV or the wood burner? You really can make your life a misery by overcomplicating things, and really thinking about it before you spend any money can save you so much money. On a slightly separate note, this is basically why I've pretty much completely stopped drinking a long time ago, is because whenever I'd go to the pub, I'd be sat there, pay for a pint, and then work out how much time I had to spend at my 9-to-5 job to pay for that drink. And then I'd think, did that actually give me any enjoyment? And that thought process really started to affect how I think about almost everything, especially now that, because I'm self-employed, if I want to go on a 4-day holiday at a random point in the week, I can do it. And my flight from Bournemouth to Mallorca was 55 quid. What's more fun, a few pints or going to Mallorca? And I really want this to register with you. You can have anything you want in 5 years' time, but you've got to know what you want it to be. And then you've got to start putting all of the work in place to start actually achieving it. No matter what your background is, what your sob story is, there is someone out there right now with a way worse sob story who is achieving far more than you. They're not more intelligent, they're not more skilled, they've just got work ethic. You can win absolutely any race, you just have to start before everybody else. It's taken me, let's just say, 10 years from the moment I started thinking, oh, I really want to escape this normal system that the world seems to be in. It could take you 5, it could take you 7, you could be 50 watching this video, you could be 20. It doesn't matter. What matters is you just start now, because one day if you don't go for all the stuff you want, you're going to look back and regret it. It's all a process, so you just got to keep going and just start now. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you are new, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and if you don't mind, please share it to a friend, because that will double this video's exposure. So thanks a lot, and as always, I will see you next Thursday.